Привет, товарищи! Welcome to my immersive sky. Today, since we haven't built anything in a long time here, I decided that we're going to make the 360 swivel mount. And basically what that means is we're going to take this helmet and we're going to install a 360 boom. That way we can record ourselves. Now before you go and get discouraged, trust me, this is a very easy project. And this will actually, under 20 bucks or less, with the only two things that you need to own before we start this, is a helmet and a GoPro. And all of your other stuff can be found at a Lowe's or a Home Depot or some kind of hardware store. Now traditionally, small action cameras like this either go in a headband or a helmet like this. And this is great actually, because wherever you look, that's where the camera looks, and that's great. But sometimes you want to capture what you're doing yourself. If you're on a four-wheeler, a jet ski, a motorcycle, or you could be running down the field, playing airsoft or whatever. And maybe you just want to actually videotape yourself. Well, this is going to help you do just that. And the only tools that we'll need today is going to be a drill with two different bits corresponding to the two bolts that you're going to buy, and a file, and then maybe a adjustable wrench to tighten down the bolts. One GoPro handlebar mount. One of the most important parts to get is this caster. And all a caster really is a wheel assembly that's a 360 like this. This is basically something that goes on a crash cart, a push cart, a chair, anything like that. These can typically be found for less than $5 or $6, depending on what kind of quality you want. Now, the important thing whenever you're buying these, the width of the wheel. Make sure that you're getting something between a 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch as far as the width between these two holdings. The second thing is a PVC pipe that corresponds with the width of the caster. In this case, since I went with a 1/2 inch diameter in between, I also went with a 1/2 inch pipe right here. Next, we're going to need some washers. Now these washers are pretty inexpensive, 16 cents a piece, and you're going to need anywhere between 20 to 25, just depends on what you want. Now the counterweight, that's what we're using it for. You can adjust this anywhere between GoPro by itself in a slim case to a regular case, or if your GoPro has a backpack or an LCD screen, you just add more washers and create the perfect weight. And next we're going to need two different bolts. One of these, the shorter one, and make sure that you have a nut on your bolt, is once we take this wheel out, we need something that's going to go right through the mounts, because we're going to be drilling through this, and we're going to be mounting it into here. Now the next one is for our washers, because our washers are going to be like this, and we're going to mount this through it. And the last thing that I have are these 1/2 inch covers. You actually only need one, but I am going to include a second one just to be a perfectionist. But it's up to you if you guys want one or two. Alright, let's get to assembling. So now what we need to do is to remove this axle, or this pin right here. Now, like I said before, we can use the file. That's completely fine. You don't need any kind of machinery to do this project. But I'm just going to use the grinder to make it a little bit faster. Basically, we're going to pick, if you look, we're going to pick the smallest side. Because this basically is like a big rivet. It's been smashed from both sides. And we're just going to take off this one side. Once we take off this side, we can just completely push it out through one side. Alright. So I have grinded it flush, and it still doesn't want to come out. So I'm going to give it a little love tap with this punch. So that's how it's supposed to look when you remove the wheel. Make sure there's no remains of the axles or the wheel. So it looks like that. Next, we're going to take our end cap. We're going to put it in a vise. very tight and clamp it down very tightly. And then we're going to make a hole right in the middle of it. Just like that. And what we're going to need to do is we're going to take our big bolt for our washers and we're going to put this through here. Now you guys may have noticed that the hole I drilled was actually slightly smaller than the actual bolt. And that's actually exactly how I wanted it, because you want this bolt to be very tight and not to wobble at all. So we're going to speed this up. After you're done putting the bolt all the way through, then take one of your nuts and put it as tightly as you can. And we're going to tighten this up, because this is one of those things that once we add it to the pipe, we're not going to have a chance to get back in there to tighten it up. So make this as tight as you can, and that looks pretty good. Now it's time to go and glue this to the 5-foot pipe. This is what it looks like glued, and you can use PVC, cement, or super glue, or whatever you want to do. Now again, like I was saying in the beginning, you don't have to be a perfectionist, but I like to have my stuff you know, as perfect as I can get it. So I'm going to put one more end cap and I'm going to glue it to here. So it's going to look like this. So the glue has finished drying, and at this point we're prepared to drill a pivot hole in the 5-foot pipe. So since this is 5 foot, normally you would go between 2.5 feet, which actually would be here at 6 inches. But we're going to actually take 1 and 2 inches and drill there. The way our camera is offset by 2 inches forward. So 2 inches. Again, just try to make sure that you're as centered as you possibly can. Now, one of the most critical steps in this operation is to find the center of your helmet. Now, typically, if you look on the inside of your helmet, sometimes you may need to remove some of your pads or whatever, but you can actually find your center. I don't know if you can see. You see that circle right there? A lot of these helmets, especially if they're plastic, this is the injection port where they take a machine and they basically, in the mold, just pour out the plastic until it... So that's actually, for my helmet, that is the center. So what I'm going to do is I have a drill bit the correct size for the stem on my caster. I've cleaned that up a little bit more, so it's a nice clean hole, and I've removed all burrs and stuff from the inside, and as you guys can see, this fits in there pretty nicely, and that's how it's going to work. So now we need to figure out the height of this bolt, because you don't want a big old bolt sticking in top of your head. So how we're going to do that, and at this point, to simulate the thickness of this helmet, I'm going to put on 3 washers. And that's going to be about, with obviously a little bit extra, but that's going to be the thickness of the helmet. And then I'm going to put my bolt on. And once I do that, I'm going to want to mark and cut the rest of the stem right off, because we don't need all of this right here. So you can either use a hacksaw, which I forgot to mention, or you can use a grinder or an electric cutoff wheel, anything of that nature. So here we have it. I have cut off the extra length of the stem, and even though I polished it up just a little bit so there's no burrs, this is basically what it looks like. At this point, it's now safe to remove this and then mount it. If you want to, you can put a washer. I'm choosing not to, but go ahead and install it. And on the inside, put at least one of those washers right there, just to give you a little bit more strength. And go ahead and put on your nut. Tighten this up. Just one more note. If you have a nicer helmet, even though I have some Velcro glued to the top of my helmet, if you want to protect your helmet and so you don't have any nasty scratches from this to your helmet, go ahead and cut yourself a piece of cloth, or at least tape up over your helmet so whenever you put this down, you don't scratch your helmet. If you don't care, obviously you don't have to do any of that. And again, I have some Velcro, so I don't care. This is my action helmet. So now, go ahead and make everything nice and tight. And it's time to take that hole that you drilled and to mount your 5-foot pipe to it. One thing that I've noticed, the width between here and here is actually larger or bigger than my pipe. So if that happens to you, that's okay. Whenever you're tightening this up, it will come together. Or if you want, you can put washers in between those two. That's fine. An option that you have is either you can leave it loose, and then your pole will move up and down like so, and kind of give you more options. Or if you want, you can actually ratchet this thing down to the point where there is no up and down movement whatsoever. So all of your stuff is going to be very strictly 360 and no up and down. So as you guys can see, that's how it looks like. I'm gonna experiment and I'm gonna see if I like the up and down more better, or if I just want it fixed at a certain height. Because you don't necessarily have to have this completely, flat. If I want to, I can actually take this and, at a downwards angle perhaps, or an upwards angle, and still film like that. So, okay, let's go outside and start experimenting. Man, I'm in too big of a hurry to try this thing out. Forgot to attach my washers. Again, very simply, like this, and then you take your remaining knot and you put it on the end. Because I'm gonna take my GoPro and I'm just gonna attach it like so. So that's how that looks like. And the end cap, which is a nice feature, you don't have to do it, but it keeps this mount from sliding off just in case. And it's also nice. I bought this as an off-brand. I paid, if I remember correctly, like $6.99 or whatever on Amazon. Make sure that you have a forward and backwards cant, and maybe a side-to-side cant as well. Alright, now it's time to balance this thing out and then go outside. So there you guys have it. This is a pretty amazing thing, and it gives you a very nice cinematic 360 view. Now as far as action sports, maybe not the best idea, because you do have 5 foot of pipe that's swinging around your head. Obviously you don't want to knock somebody out or give them stitches or anything like that. But for anything that's stationary but moving, and what I mean by that is some kind of vehicle, like a motorcycle, a four-wheeler, stuff like that, very awesome. You get to see the landscape all around you, and you get to see yourself, which is a really, really big plus in my book. Overall, a very awesome project. I would hope that you guys go ahead and try at home. If you don't have a GoPro, that's fine. A contour camera or one of those things, you just get an adapter or you fashion something instead of the GoPro. The counterweight system works just the same. One interesting thing that I found for myself, especially when riding the motorcycle, is that camera tends to stay behind you. And the reason for that, the front of the GoPro is flat and it acts like a sail. So it'll actually more or less stabilize the camera behind you. And as always, I hope you guys like this kind of video. Go ahead and comment down below, share this video, and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, I hope I see you guys next time. Пока-пока.